Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Quick History. Today we're going to be looking at how to apply our subject knowledge to answering question 2 on your conflict and tension paper, which is a 12-mark question, which therefore is the second highest amount of marks you can gain in your exam. It's a very important question and it's going to use two sources from your source insert. In this case it's going to be source B and source C. And the question we're going to look at today is again from the June 2018 paper, which is how useful are sources B and C to a historian studying the reasons for the defeat of Germany in 1918. Again, as with question 1 from the previous video, you must then explain your answer using sources B and C and your own contextual knowledge. So let's take a look at the sources. As you can see here, we've got two sources, source B, source C. Best piece of advice I can give you going into this exam is give yourself a good 5 minutes reading the sources. 12 marks is a lot of marks, and it's very important that we pick up everything that we can from both sources, which will then help us to write a very detailed essay, which will help us get some good marks. If we don't quite read these sources or we miss some little bits, it's very easy to give marks away. So let's look at source B. Source B is adapted from the diaries of Princess Blucher, who was describing life in Germany in 1917 and 1918. She was an English woman married to a German nobleman, and she decided to stay in Germany when war broke out. She said the following: "The Kaiser is daily becoming the shadow of a king. People talk openly of wanting his abdication. We become thinner every day, and the rounded shape of the German people is a legend of the past. Everyone is gaunt and bony with dark shadows around our eyes and obsessed with where our next meal will come from. People are also blue with cold, but I don't believe that Germany will ever be starved out." Now, in what is only 6 lines of source and three sentences of tag at the top, there is a great deal of information in this source. The key to this, and hopefully when you've been kind of following this video along with me, what you should see when you see the source and you see what the source is talking about, the naval blockade is what needs to be screaming out in your mind. This source is about the naval blockade and how that led to starvation and hunger in Germany, which therefore led to people calling for the abdication of the Kaiser, for the king. As we'll show in the exemplar answer, if we can pick up some of those key basic points, we can make some simple observations, pick up some easy marks. In source C, and I must admit when I marked these papers last year, source C was very poorly done. And it was very poorly done for 2 reasons. The first reason is because what was missed is this here on the chest of the character swinging the sword, which is the word Foch. Ferdinand Foch, you must know going into your exam, Ferdinand Foch was appointed the Allied commander on the Western Front. Foch was a Frenchman, but he controlled under the unified command. He had the unified command of the British, French, and American troops. And it was under Ferdinand Foch when the counterattack, known as the 100 Days in the summer of 1918, destroyed the Germans on the battlefield and forced them back past the Hindenburg Line. There's videos explaining all these things elsewhere on my channel. Now what we can see here is it's an American cartoon published in the summer of 1918. The snake represents Germany and the man holding the sword is Field Marshal Foch. Now what we can see Foch is doing is he's using the sword of unified command to chop up the German snake. And on the German snake we can see different places on the Western Front, which we should recognize. The Battle of the Marne, the Picardy region, which is the Battle of the Somme, and then the Flanders, which is the Battle of Passchendaele. And clearly the insinuation being made in this source is that Foch and the unified armies of the French, British, and American forces are destroying Germany and cutting it to pieces. Once we've picked up all of this information, we can then start to think about how do we write an answer. And I've provided an exemplar answer for you here with some little hints to help you explain how to do it. First thing to consider when you're reading the sources is who wrote the source and why did they write it? When was it written? What subject knowledge can I deploy to support the answer? And then crucially, answer the question. Don't just write about what the sources are telling us. That is not going to get you any marks. What you have to do is you have to show how do these sources help us explain why Germany was defeated during the First World War. Now, what you'll see throughout my exemplar answer is you will see the words basic, simple, and developed. This is how you need to think about answering question 2. You need to start off by making a very basic point, as I've done here. We've got a nice basic point here to get us going. Source A is useful to a historian studying the defeat of Germany because it shows how the naval blockade impacted the German people, which led to calls for the Kaiser to end the war. Now, in the mark scheme, that will give you credit for making a basic point. You're going to pick up a mark or 2. We can now work on how do we get some more. Well, we then need to add some simple explanation. In this case, I've provided that for you. Source A explains how the people of Germany were starved as a result of the naval blockade, as the author explains that people were becoming thinner every day and people are obsessed with where their next meal would come from. This was because Britain was blockading the German ports, which meant food couldn't be imported and led to food shortages. What we've got there is we've got a simple piece of explanation. We're now going to be picking up 3-4 marks. However, if we want to get the top marks, we're then going to need to add some development. We're going to need to get away from the source and we're going to need to use some of our own subject knowledge. And I've got some examples for you here. So this led to the starvation in Germany with 420,000 people dying of starvation and the population of Germany having to survive on turnips, which is all they could grow during the turnip winter. That is developed subject knowledge. That shows the examiner that you know your stuff and that you are able to recite and recall things which you've learned to support the answer using your own contextual knowledge. Also, this source is useful because it was written by a princess who would have been wealthy and better off than most other Germans. And if the wealthy are suffering from food shortages, then the ordinary people would have been worse off. Again, we've used some developed source use there, so we're using both the source and our own subject knowledge to support our basic and simple points which we've made earlier in the question. However, that's only going to get us so far. You can only get half marks if you only look at half the question. Remember, we have to look at source A and source B. So we have to follow the same process for source B of making a basic point, a simple point, and then develop it with our own subject knowledge. This will then help us unlock the final band in band 4, which is a sustained argument. We're making good points, we're making simple points, and we're then developing those points with developed subject knowledge and source use, which then gives us credit for sustaining our answer. We're writing a sustained answer then. So source B, I've followed the exact same criteria as I did for source A. I've made a basic point, which that source B is useful because it explains that Germany was defeated on the battlefield by the Allies under unified command. That's a basic point. Source B shows that the Allied commander Ferdinand Foch was using a sword to cut up the snake, which is Germany. We know the snake is Germany because it's wearing a German helmet. On the snake are a number of battles where the Allies beat the Germans, and it was these defeats which led to Germany being defeated. That's my simple point. I'm then going to bring in some developed subject knowledge, which is that I know that the Allies defeated the Germans during the 100 Days Offensive, where the Allies counterattacked the Germans after failure of the Ludendorff Offensive. Germany did not have enough men to stop the Allies, and they were pushed back to the Hindenburg Line. That's some developed subject knowledge, and I'm now sustaining my answer because I've done it for both source A and source B. And I'm then going to summarize with a conclusion. The sources are useful because they show that not only were Germany being defeated on the battlefield on the Western Front, but the German people at home were suffering too. With Germans starving to death, they were calling for the war to end and for the abdication of the Kaiser. So this is not an easy question, and I would argue that this is possibly the most difficult question on the paper because you've got to use both your contextual knowledge and your source skills. Question 1 is quite a simple question. Question 3 and 4, which we'll look at in some future videos, rely solely on your subject knowledge. If you know your subject knowledge, you'll be absolutely fine. It is question 2 where you have to use the sources and your subject knowledge, where lots of marks can be given away. So make sure while you're writing your answer in that exam, have you made a basic point? Have you supported it with some simple explanation? Have you then developed it with the use of the source and with your own subject knowledge? And then do that same thing again with source B, and then a little conclusion to answer the question off at the end. If we do that, we'll be unlocking 10, 11, 12 marks, and you'll be away and you'll be laughing, so you can start the question 3 and question 4, which is all about what do you know. We'll look at how to answer those questions in the next video. I'll see you there.